-2. Get started. Can't find it. I turned it late.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, good evening, and members of the public, welcome to this meeting of the Clovis City Commission. We'll begin the meeting in the normal fashion with a prayer, and then we'll honor our flags. So if you would, please stand with me. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessings that you give us each day. Thank you for the blessing that it is to live and work and serve in such a wonderful community made up of the best people anywhere. And Lord, we pray for your guidance this evening as we make decisions, and we thank you for the privilege of this opportunity. And I pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. If you would, please, everyone, please join me in honoring our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. With that, this meeting is called to order. This meeting is called to order. Would the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner David Bryant.
Here.
Commissioner Helen Casaus.
Here.
Commissioner Jean Porter.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chris Bryant.
Here.
Commissioner Juan Garza.
Here.
Commissioner Lauren Rowley.
Here.
Commissioner Megan Powler.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Morris.
Here.
Oh, sorry, Mayor Mike Morris.
That is quite all right, Ms. Burrows. Thank you for that, and I am present. Appreciate that. Next, we have the approval of the agenda, and before someone fires off a motion to approve, I wonder if someone would want to take the one item out of consent and deal with that under new business, as that would be more efficient. Let's do that, if that's all right. We will move
That'll work.
the consent, the only consent item. We'll take that out and we'll put it under new business. With that one adjustment, unless there are objections, I will assume your approval. Hearing and seeing no objections, we will adopt the agenda, and please record a yes vote for each of the members of the commission. Next, we have approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from the October 20th, 2022 meeting in your packet. You've had the chance to review those. Any objections to the way those have been published? Hearing and seeing none, we'll adopt the minutes from the October 20th meeting. Next, recognition of guests and visitors. Thank you once again to everyone that has made it out to join us this evening. I made every effort and had the city go to great lengths to create a situation where we had maximum capacity, and we gave preference to residents of this city for seating, and we appreciate you being here. I did want to make a request of you this evening, and that is that we maintain order. We will have order at tonight's meeting, please. In Clovis, we know how to respect ourselves and respect one another, and so this evening there will be no tolerance for outbursts or taunting or gasping or calling out from the back or any of the like. And if there's someone that cannot maintain order, then we would just ask you to please leave, and we will continue with our meeting. But we know how to conduct ourselves in a civil manner in Clovis, and I'm pleading with you to please do so. We will have order this evening. Also, just wanted to mention that we've made a change or two. Or I've made a change or two to the public comment process. And this evening during public comment, we will not insist that you give your name and address on the record. However, we will ask that there is a sign-in sheet next to the podium, and we would like it if you would state your name and if you are a resident of this city. But we'll have you record your name and address for the official record on the clipboard beside the podium. wanted to point that out before we continue. We do have an important and I don't know, call it a special item this evening, which is a presentation of proclamation proclaiming November 7th through the 12th as Veterans Week in the city of Clovis. And here to receive that proclamation this evening is everyone's friend, Mr. John Montano. Mr. Montano, would you like to share with us?
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners. My name's John Montano, and I'm the kind of organizer, chairman of Veterans Day Parade this year. The Clovis Joint Veteran Council does this every year. So, in honor of all the veterans here in Clovis, and we have quite a few, you know, we're just going to honor them. This year, the theme is Be the One for Veterans. So, we come up with that. And the parade will be held on November 12th, starting at 12 o'clock that morning. And it'll be down Main Street. So we hope that everybody comes out and join us for it. And anyway, like I said, veterans we have Canton Air Force Base here, and we have a lot of people that are retired military. But, you know, we've got Clovis, New Mexico. The people of Clovis are great. You know, you talk about Canton Air Force Base, you know, Clovis is known for all the good things that Clovis does for veterans. So thank you and all that. But anyway, the parade will be on November 12th at 10 o'clock. And our Joint Veterans Week will start Monday. And at this time, we have our agenda. Oops. So you guys, if you want to come out and join us, you know, ladies, you don't have to cook that week because you can come out and eat with us anyway. Would you like me to pass out on this?
Sure. You're welcome to, yes, sir.
Do you want me to help you? I can
Or we
help.
could get someone to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcus.
On there. So see on that agenda that Tuesday on the 8th of November, American Legion Post 117 will have their open house. On the following day,
3015 is on Tuesday.
Tuesday? Yes, okay. I didn't I didn't keep one of those for myself. But anyway.
Do you want me to read
And
it
my
for you,
memory's
John?
not that good.
We
Oh,
could
here
have
it is.
Commissioner Casals go over that for you.
Here it is.
Oh, he's got one.
And anyway, then the next day, Wednesday, Wednesday is American Legion Post 117. So we have an open house. Meals will be served for everybody, veteran, their family, and anybody who wants to come out and join us. This is not only for veterans, this is for everybody here in Clovis. On Thursday, November 10th, open house at the Elks Lodge, number 1244, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And on that night, dinner will be served for everybody there. At that time, we'll have that flag retirement ceremony. If anybody has any flags that need to be destroyed, bring them out to the Elks Club, and we will do it in a dignified way. Then next day, November 11th, which is Veterans Day, we have Veterans Day breakfast at American Legion Post 25, 7 a.m. till 11. So breakfast served all morning. And like I said, this is not only for veterans and their families. This is for the public. So come out and join us. And then on the 12th, we'll have Veterans Parade at starting at 10 o'clock that morning. And the awards will be given out at VFW 3280 here on Grand Street. And at that time, we will have meals for everybody that shows up in all the presentation. So I just want to reiterate how Clovis is good to all these people, all the veterans, and we appreciate that. And we want to thank Mayor, the city commissioners, and, you know, Clovis and all, because they are so good to us. So I thank you very much.
Well, Mr.
Are there
Montano,
any questions?
any questions or comments for Mr. Montano? Well, we just want to, I want to thank you. We all want to thank you for the work that you do to highlight the importance of showing gratitude to our veterans. We owe our veterans a debt of gratitude, and appreciate the effort that you put in to do that. We look forward to all of those events you described. I always love the parade, and I'd like to share the proclamation with everyone. Proclamation, whereas the United States military is dedicated to preserving the freedoms and liberties Americans enjoy each day, their way of life, culture, and heritage. Whereas the United States military proudly stands up and publicly declares its determination toward actively and positively safeguarding our freedoms from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And whereas throughout history, the United States military has protected our nation's security, our liberties, our way of life, sacrificing their safety on battlefields far from home and being prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice for their great country. And whereas we should always remember that our individual liberties and freedoms come at a price of sacrifice of the few for the many. Now therefore I, Mike Morris, Mayor of Clovis, and on behalf of the Commission, hereby declare November 7th through November 12th, 2022 as Veterans Week in the city of Clovis, and invite citizens of Clovis to join me in remembering and thanking veterans for their sacrifices that they have made throughout the years on our behalf to protect our liberty and freedom.
Thank you.
So that does it for presentations this evening. So we'll move into receipts of petitions and communications. And I know 99% of everyone that's here is for the agenda item pertaining to abortion. So what we'll do is we'll hear from you in just a few minutes when we get to that agenda item. So during public comment, I want to give the opportunity for those that may have something else to bring in front of the commission this evening. So I know that we have received a letter from Representative Rod Montoya, and I think if I may, I'd like to call on Claire Burrows, Assistant City Manager, Ms. Burrows, to read out that letter, which was addressed to myself and the City Commission we received earlier today.
Letter from Rod Montoya, New Mexico House Republican Whip, Representative San Juan County, November 3rd, 2022. To Mayor Morris and members of the Clovis City Commission, I appreciate the position that you and your citizens are in with the threat of an out-of-state abortion clinic relocating to eastern New Mexico, specifically to perform abortions for out-of-state customers. As the legislator who has introduced or co-sponsored 80% of the pro-life legislation in the past 8 years, I understand the feeling of urgency. The reason that I am writing to you today is because I received an email from a Clovis resident who made allegations that the Republican Party leadership participating in subversive activity in your community to stop any ordinance from moving forward, and I am worried that this misinformation is being shared as fact. The email stated that a meeting was held at a church in Clovis where a prominent businessman revealed in very clear terms what the Republican Party, top down, has required of our mayor. The email further stated that we came to realize our mayor has been held hostage by his own Republican Party, unbeknownst to his constituents. The Republican Party has called upon our mayor to place himself in an impossible position, stymie the progress of our ordinance against the vocally expressed will of the Conservatives in our community. The email also stated, this is the sort of top-down dictatorship that has drawn the ire of most of our community over the past 2 years. These allegations are just plain false. Neither I nor any other Republican Party leaders have made any top-down demands of any local official. To my knowledge, no one other than myself has even addressed local pro-life activists or elected officials. I did make a trip to southeast New Mexico a couple of months back to talk with pro-life and religious leaders in an effort to encourage patience and urge caution, and to strongly suggest that the long-term consequences of any action need to be considered. New Mexico pro-life attorney Mike Seibel also attended this meeting with the same purpose in mind. In the following weeks, several eastern New Mexico community leaders, including Mayor Morris, reached out to me to get a better understanding of my concerns, which I still have. Pro-abortion groups have made it clear that any measure that is passed will be challenged on the grounds of limiting access to women's health care. If this is challenged in New Mexico courts, our activist judiciary will very likely rule that no community has the right to limit health care access, thus creating a constitutional right guaranteeing abortion by judicial fiat. Because of this, any ordinance that does not include regulations that are health care related, such as requiring an abortion practitioner to have a New Mexico medical license, or that abortion procedures must take place in a licensed medical facility, will likely fail in New Mexico courts. In the absence of any state regulations which protect women, local officials must be able to ensure that women in their communities are protected from unregulated back alley medical procedures. If these requirements are not in your ordinance, you will be unable to defend your position against the claims of restricting health care. Local citizens also need to understand that only the attorney's fees of lawyers representing your city will not be charged to the local community. If a lawsuit were to proceed through the courts and a judgment were to go against you, your community may be held liable for the opposing attorney's fees and any damages that would be assessed. These awards could be in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. We experienced this firsthand in San Juan County, where lawyers provided their services to the Bloomfield City Council when they decided to put up a monument of the 10 Commandments on city property. The cost of their legal defense was covered, but the $700,000 judgment against the city was incurred by the citizens of Bloomfield. With the possibility of such an expense, it is in your best interest to research your city's liability insurance coverage to determine if your insurance would pay in the case of a negative judgment against you. Be sure to do your due diligence before making any decision. You should ask the attorneys who are planning to represent you if they could secure a commitment from pro-life organizations or benefactors to help cover the cost if there were a negative ruling. They should be willing to help you with this since they are asking you to take such a big risk. This is an extremely important decision you are making for yourself and for all of New Mexico. I believe that every aspect of this decision and all of the consequences need to be carefully considered. We must be very cautious when deciding to risk such a terrible long-term consequence for what could be a very short-lived victory. I wish you well in making this important decision. Rod Montoya.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. Honoring Representative Montoya's request, he took very seriously the allegations that were made and wanted that read publicly, and so I appreciate you allowing us to allow that to happen this evening. Also planned under receipts of petitions and communications, I believe Dr. Smith has a communication pertaining to voting. Yes, sir. All right. Can, is it just my voice that you don't hear very well? Okay. I'll just get real close to this microphone. All right. Thank you, Representative. Dr. Smith.
Dr. Marcus Smith. I'm the chair of the Curry County Republican Party. So Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners, thank you for having me this evening. Let me give a little bit of a speech, and really this is a public service announcement. Had a great crowd, and I might as well get up here and start talking about voting, which is coming up very quick, and is happening right now. So I want to remind everybody that early voting is happening now. It's continuing tomorrow, and Saturday will be the last days to early vote. You can go to the Curry County Administration Building at 417 Gidding, or North Plains Mall at 2809 North Prince. And on tomorrow, on Friday, they will be open from 8 to 6 o'clock. And on Saturday, they will be from 10 to 6. That'll be the last day to early vote. So let's get into the important day of Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 8th. Polls will open at 7 a.m. We'll close at 7 p.m. Just to remind everybody where you can vote. La Casa Senior Center at 1120 Cameo Street, Clovis Community College, 417 Sheps Boulevard, North Plains Mall, 2809 North Prince Street, Farmers Electric Cooperative, 3701 North Thornton Street, Curry County Road Department, or the Road Barn, 1006 County Road 6, Pleasant Hill Fire Department, 304 Road 77, Grady Senior Citizen Center, 104 West Main in Grady, Melrose City Hall, 105 East Avenue B in Melrose, and Texaco Community Building, 215 North Griffin Street in Texaco. Now, I want to remind everybody that any registered and eligible Curry County voter can vote in any one of those locations. Anywhere in Curry County, you can go and get that done. I know that there's a couple of organizations that are looking to give people rides, but I'm here tonight to remind everybody this is where you can go vote, and please go and do vote. Same-day voter registration can happen at any polling location. You need to have all documentation, including an ID, there to same-day register vote. So, I mean, if you're looking to do that, I would advise to get there early or go see Annie Hoagland or Hoagland at the county clerk's office. Any absentee ballot that needs to be turned in must be turned in by 7 p.m. on Election Day. So you have until 7 p.m. on November 8th to turn in any absentee ballots. A sample ballot can be found at www.nmvote.org, and that way you can look at who's going to be on your ballot, and if you go and search Curry County, you can see everybody that's going to be on there. The last thing that I will talk about tonight is we have a lot of people watching. We have a large audience here, and I want to remind everybody, go vote. Call 10 people, take them to go vote. Have those people call 10 people and go vote. As of right now, we have 20,000 registered eligible people to vote in Curry County. As of yesterday at 3 o'clock, only 3,700 have voted. That's a very small percentage. We always want to get votes up, and it is going to be a numbers game. This year, in every single race, everybody is paying attention because of everything that has happened in our life over the last 2 years. It's very important that you get out and vote locally and whenever we get all the way up to the governor's race. So please get out and vote. If you have any questions, you can call me, 575-749-2792. I'll be more than happy to direct you to anybody that, if I don't have the information for you. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
I have a question. I just want to see if you can clarify for us that may not know, in the event that we go to a polling location close to the time or at the time of poll closing, and there's a crowd in front of us, are we still going to be able to allow, or are we going to be able to vote if it exceeds the 7 p.m. deadline?
I would honestly have to ask our county clerk on that.
Smith, would you like me to assist?
Yes.
That would be great.
Ms.
Yes.
Melanson knows this answer.
Yes, Commissioner Porter, as long as you are in line by 7 p.m., there will actually be a poll worker who, if there is a long line, will come and stand behind that person, and that will be the last person to vote, and that's how they will maintain that. And I do have a question for you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, ma'am?
The campus is large.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to assist people as to where? Because this is new.
Yes, ma'am.
for voters, where at the college they would go to vote.
Okay, if you were to go down the street at 417 Sheps, you're looking at the college, the flagpoles are right there in front of you. You will see the flagpoles. That's not the door you go in. The wrong place. Don't go in that door.
It's like, psych.
It's the best landmark that I can give. I've given it a lot of times, so you should be able to get it. So there's that door, but there is a door a little farther down to the right of the flagpoles. So go to the door to the right of the flagpoles by Town Hall, and that's where they will be doing early voting. Or that's where they're doing voting on Election Day.
Maybe just remember his phone number and call him for exactly how
Best
to
way to
get
do it.
there. No, that's great. No, I appreciate the message. I have always thought we need more voters paying attention and casting their votes. So thank you. Appreciate that, Dr. Smith.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So is there anyone else that so next in the agenda, we will be taking up the issue that, again, 99% of you are here to talk about. But is there anyone that has something other than the hot topic tonight that they wish to share with the commission? Now would be the time. Very well. We will move on then to introduction and adoption of resolutions and ordinances. And we have the one item this evening, and it is request for approval of adoption of ordinance number 2184-2022, requiring abortion providers in the city of Clovis to comply with federal law. Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, you are obviously well aware of this. You've had this this item to look at and think about and hear from the public on and discuss with folks now for 20 some days. And so we have it back in front of you after having been adopted, or excuse me, after having been introduced on October 13th in special meeting. It is back this evening for consideration of adoption. And I know that myself and others had a meeting with Attorney Jonathan F. Mitchell earlier today, and he had agreed and planned to join us virtually. So I thought I would check and see if he's on. He is on. Great. So as questions come up, he has graciously made himself available to us this evening to field legal questions, and so just be aware that he is there. Obviously, we have a lot of folks that want to share their thoughts with us on this issue. We have heard from, in public meeting, we've heard from, I've lost count, the number of folks, and as of the last couple of meetings, really both sides of the issue. I don't know about all of you, but I've received more calls, messages, and emails today than any other single day in my adult life. And so we have certainly heard what folks want or don't want on this. However, in this public meeting, I do want to give you the opportunity to share with us. What I will do is hear from no more than 5 that want to speak in favor, and no more than 5 that want to speak in opposition to the adoption of this ordinance. After we've done that, I will essentially just poll this commission, and they can tell me if they would like to hear more, and we'll take up more, or if they feel like they've heard enough information and testimony, then at that point we will perhaps have debate, perhaps have a vote, what have you. But I just wanted to prepare you for that. So also, just a reminder on the ground rules for this, you don't have to give your name and address aloud if you don't want to. I would like for you to state that you are a citizen of our city, or at least our community, and before making your comments. But then in any of those cases, we need you to write your name and information on the sheet on the clipboard on the side of the podium there. So having established kind of where we'll go next, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, anything from you, or are you ready to hear from speakers?
Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to address
Yeah.
the crowd.
Yes, Commissioner Porter.
I have a question for everybody in attendance tonight, but before I give that question, I just want to thank you all for coming. It is important to us that you are here. It means something to us, and so I want to thank you for that, first and foremost. My question relies on your honesty, and so I believe that we have a crowd full of honest people, and so what I would like to ask you to answer my question with a raise of hands, and my question is this. With a raise of hands, how many here have read the ordinance in full and have read the law that it is based on? Can you raise your hand for me? Keep your hands up for just one moment, please. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Commissioner Porter. Appreciate that. Commissioners, comments? Okay. All right. So I would love to hear. Let's begin with those in favor. If there's someone that would like to speak, yes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Wilson, 132 East Plains Avenue here in Clovis, and I want to thank you. Our Declaration of Independence says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. All governments, local, state, and federal, were and are formed for the sole purpose to secure the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Unalienable is a founding father's belief that some rights come from God, and because they come from God, man cannot take them away, and any just power is based on the consent of the governed, meaning the will of the people." John Adams stated, "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Greed, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a well goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. For our founding fathers, liberty is freedom plus morality. If my freedom harms others, it is no longer liberty. And if morality does not govern my freedom, it is no longer liberty. Morality for our founding fathers did include religious instruction, but was also the moral fabric inherent in men and women who value life, and morality was to be taught. Our society has lost these truths, and for that reason, abortion is now viewed as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But when did abortion, a practice that destroys life or the potential of life, become a form of health care? And when did abortion become birth control? James Madison in the Federalist Papers of 1788 stated, "Liberty may be endangered by the abuses of liberty as well as the abuses of power. Abortion is an abuse of liberty. Death is not a valid response to life, and death is not health care. Not today, when there are so many options and easy access to birth control." I also want to state, as someone who knows the fear and uncertainty of an unexpected pregnancy, I have great compassion for those who find themselves in that same situation. Abortion can seem like the only answer, as if erasing what is inside you will make everything go back to normal. For that reason, we must restore civil debate and dissent within the confines of liberty, meaning I might be free to label the other side as fascist or baby killers, but does elementary grade level name-calling result in cooperation and progress? The blessing of favor resting upon the righteous influences a city to lift it higher, but the wicked leaders tear it apart by their words. Our opinions and ideas might oppose one another, but the American spirit should remain intact. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Wilson. And as she started speaking, I realized I failed to talk about the timer. However, she timed what she had to say perfectly to 3 minutes. So, but But it's 3 minutes that I'll give you, and so when the timer goes off, I'll just ask that you wrap up if you would, please. So, next, someone, that's one. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please. Oh. Yes. Yes. Okay, very well. Thank you.
Hi, Candy Gomez, 4920 Humphrey. Thank you for hearing us tonight. And I think something that has been brought up was the opposing side, and that it's the women's health. And abortion does affect women's health, as we have addressed in the past meetings, and something that was detrimental to our community. And over the summer was we lost one of our biggest healthcare facilities for women. And that is Women's Medical Center. And something that was brought up is by not bringing in these abortion clinics, that we're keeping doctors and jobs, but we couldn't even get doctors for Women's Medical Center, which was detrimental to our health as women. And as I mentioned the last meeting, mental health is a huge issue from this. And has anyone actually sat down with someone that has had an abortion? Have you listened to them? And years later, when they want to have a family and they have issues and they can't have a family anymore, and something that they made a choice so many years ago is coming back up. Not to mention shame and guilt and suicide and mental health. And mental health is already one of the most rising medical conditions of our time. And so that's just something I also want to mention, and I know preventative health has been mentioned, and there is free preventative health at our health care, and very affordable preventative health at our health care that is available, because let's face it, abortion is not free, and it comes at many costs, not just financially, but mentally, health, spiritual, everything, it lines up with it. And on the legal side of it, if we are worried about that, the Bible says no weapon formed against us shall prosper, and that's Isaiah 54:17. So if we are doing what God is calling us to do, and we are standing on his word and what he says in the Bible, which our children are a gift from him, which is he formed them in the womb. That means day one. And so if we are standing on that, we shouldn't worry about our businesses. We shouldn't worry about the legal side of it, because God prevails all. And in the end, if you read Revelations, he wins. The victory goes to him. So I do have a couple of questions. And the only thing we are to fear is to fear God. We are not to fear man. We are not to fear where our businesses are going to go, because God prevails it all. And so questions that I do have to leave with you is, how can we help in the pursuit to change things at the state level so that we can make things happen smoothly for our community, to have the ordinance we are requesting? Help us understand the process so that we can work with you to help make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and I want to caution everyone. I know that we want to cheer and we want to do all of that, but I'm asking everyone in the audience, please be respectful, and let's just keep quiet and let speakers speak, okay? Whether you're agreeing or disagreeing with what they have to say. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Sarah Hennessy. I've been an educator for 19 years in Clovis. I'm a citizen of Clovis. For all 19 years, I've worked in the same neighborhoods that Planned Parenthood statistically targets. As an educator, thinking about children and relating to the issues of life, it's kind of the best way to explain and to beg you to think about keeping this out of our city. For example, when we teach multiplication, we don't just teach kids to memorize the facts and just try to memorize it. We teach them what it means to see groups of numbers. We work with them, and we teach the process, and we go over and over it and over it. When we're teaching reading, we don't just teach them to memorize things or say, this is how it is, accept it. We start with the basics, the sounds, the rules, skills. Everything that we teach is based on solutions. We have to look at the problem first. Procreation should be no different. When we allow easy access to abortions, we start to remove the cause and effect thinking of our young people. When we allow this to be our norm, our subconscious tells us that after the act, there's an easy way to fix or to stop what may have naturally occurred. So it only perpetuates these actions. So we have to begin with education. And I know the arguments. I know that there are children born into families who struggle. I see them every day. And I don't disregard what these children are living through. And my aim is not to diminish their severity or the needs of the children in this community. This is why I say that education is the topic key, because I can't point to one single child and say, it would have been better if you weren't born. Because we are made in the image and likeness of God, we have dignity that far exceeds our circumstances. So this is a call for all of us to be proactive in thinking about life, when it begins and how it begins. So in our city and in our churches, it's time to emphasize and to remind our young men and women of their dignity and that of the unborn. And I'm committing to begin more of this work as well at my church, to empower the young people to understand and value life at all stages. I pledge to work harder at educating them before they feel they need an abortion. So please just help me to do the same. And also, if abortions haven't fixed anything in our country and our world in the last 50 years, why do we think it's going to fix anything in Clovis right now? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hennessy. Are you a resident of our city?
As of yesterday, yes.
Is that right?
Correct. My name is Mark Lee Dixon, Director with Right to Life of East Texas, resident of Clovis, New Mexico. Right to Life East Texas has no borders because people from East Texas are coming to New Mexico for abortions. And my heart right now is really grieved because once again, I'm before the City Commission saying something different than what I was originally going to say. I've had many conversations with Representative Rod Montoya, and that letter did not represent the conversations that we've had. I think the people of Clovis deserve to hear honest answers from their elected officials. We don't need elected officials saying one thing in private conversations and another elsewhere. We need our elected officials' private lives to match their public lives. I was talking to a friend of mine in Longview who's on the board of a pregnancy resource center, a maternity home actually. And we were talking about Bishop Strickland in Tyler, Texas, a statement that he had made about how elected officials across America need to stand for what is right. They need to vote pro-life, that they need to make sure that their communities become sanctuary cities for the unborn, that their communities need to stand up and do everything in their power to prohibit abortions within their communities. The ordinance before you today is not an ordinance that needs to be pushed past an election or a legislative session. This is an ordinance that if it is not voted on, you're going to send a message to all of New Mexico. You're going to send a message tonight to all the media here, to all of New Mexico, to the United States of America. Is Clovis ready to stand for life? You've heard from your constituents. I've told you time and time again that Texas stands with you. But I do say that Texas will stand against any politician who, when they have the opportunity to vote for life, do not vote for life. Whether that is in the cities or whether that's in the State House, Texas will do everything in their power to protect Texas lives, which we have an interest in the state of New Mexico. So for the sake of your residents, for the sake of East Texans, please pass this ordinance. Thank you and God bless.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Pro Tem, and Commissioners, I am Marcia Anaya. I'm sorry. Down. My name is Marcia Anaya. I'm a lifelong resident of New Mexico, and except for maybe 2 years when I was 4 and 5, I've been a resident of Clovis my entire life. So I have one question that I think any of you can answer. When you swear in your oath as city commissioners, I understand from looking at the ordinance, you also apparently swear an oath to the Constitution of the United States? Is that in there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you also swear an oath to the state of New Mexico?
Yes,
Okay.
to uphold.
To uphold the laws of the state of New Mexico, which tonight you could be breaking your oath, potentially. I'm just saying, that's why I wanted to ask, because if you do swear an oath to uphold the laws of New Mexico, you're being asked to break one of those laws, potentially, and then also breaking your oath. So when Commissioner David Bryant first introduced this ordinance to the commission, I spoke with a few of our commissioners about it. One of them said that if this was eventually passed, it would just be symbolic. I respectfully ask that this commission not approve this ordinance. I'm not saying because babies' lives are involved. I'm not saying because babies' lives aren't worth it. I believe babies' lives are worth it. But I am saying, like it or not, abortion is legal in the state of New Mexico. If this commission approves this ordinance for Clovis, will it be legal? Will it even be enforceable? The city of Clovis will most likely be sued, and I believe you know that because you've already retained an attorney. The city of Clovis will most likely be sued, and we, as taxpayers, will be liable for these costs. As stewards of the city's funds, it would be extremely, in my opinion, irresponsible for you to intentionally place the city in a costly, no-win situation. If individual groups of Clovis citizens want to take on the state, I believe they should do that, but I believe they should also take on the cost. And as private citizens, all of the members of our commission are perfectly legally welcome to do this, but they should not use their position on the commission to further this ordinance. We also have a healthcare crisis in Clovis. Women in Clovis lost a great resource when women's medical closed. If another group of medical professionals devoted to women's health care were to consider investing in Clovis, would we be essentially turning them away if this ordinance passes? Again, I implore you to consider the best interest of our city and do not allow the residents of other states and cities to impose their will on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anaya.
Hello, everybody. Since that was against, how many more do we have?
You will be the last speaking in favor,
Okay.
Mr. Welsh.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, Eric Welsh, 1204 Broadway. So I'd like to use part of my 3 minutes to address one of the talking points. This is not to contradict the letter that was read beforehand, but speaking to one of the commissioners, it said one of the things that was raised up against this is that we would not be able to negotiate this issue when we need to in the future because our allies will not want to work with us. That is what was told to me. And this has me thinking, negotiate what? What are we negotiating? We have a governor who dances on stage of abortion rallies and has people holding signs saying parasites don't have rights. Who can negotiate with that? We cannot negotiate with that. We are unable to negotiate. So here's my question to you, is why do we think that the answer to this question is gonna be found in a governor, is gonna be found in an ally at the state level? The answer to this problem is found in God alone. What about him? We sit here and we try to prognosticate and look down the corridors of time and see the possibilities of the things that are going to happen bad. What happen? There's unintended consequences for action. Ladies and gentlemen, there are consequences for unaction as well, for non-action. If we decide to sit back and be careful about everything, and guys, World War II was not won by people being careful. That is how evil is dealt with. On a black and white slate, this is either right or it is wrong. It's either right or it's wrong. Which side do you fall on? I've spoken to almost all of you and you say, I am a Christian and I am pro-life. This is the opportunity that we act like it and not just say it. And I'm not accusing you guys of this. I'm not accusing you guys of being that person. I'm not going to sit here and say, I don't believe you're pro-life. If you know, no. But what I'm saying is that things do not get done by being careful. Either God is for us or he is against us. And if you call yourself a Christian, I ask you to look inside, say what the right thing to do is, and then you get up and you go do it. That's what we elected you to do. Please, please vote yes on this. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we have heard from 5 individuals speaking in favor, and it was 5, and we've heard from 1 that asked us not to pass it. So we still have 4 available to speak in opposition. So please, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Jessie Kidd. I live here in Clovis, and I'm a registered nurse. I have worked with patients who have been sexually assaulted, and I'm here today to voice my concerns about this ordinance. I do second many of the concerns that have and will be voiced by others regarding lawsuits and financial issues. But there is another piece that worries me as a nurse. There is currently no exception for rape or incest, which I do believe to be unconscionable. I will also add that such exceptions are inherently problematic, but in this case, it doesn't even exist. There was a speaker at a previous city meeting that voiced the opinion that pregnancies resulting from rape were so small in number that they didn't really matter in this situation. And I want to say that my patients are not insignificant. They are real people. They live here in this community. They are your neighbors and your family. They are part of Cannon Air Force Base, and they are children. Regardless of the intent, this ordinance has some very vague and troubling wording about abortion medications and paraphernalia being shipped through the mail. I understand that you will be stopping access to telehealth visits and medications that come through the mail, which is something that Clovis residents have used in the past. This is going to disproportionately affect poor people. But I'm also unsure as to what exactly counts as paraphernalia. If someone goes to Albuquerque and gets an abortion and comes home and gets a letter from their provider, can they be in trouble? None of the answers I have heard from the city have clarified this point. It is this vague language that I feel is going to cause fear and confusion among sexual assault and child abuse victims who have already been through the worst. I am scared that they will not seek health care services or go to law enforcement when they have been raped for fear of what might happen should they become pregnant. City officials have said that this ordinance will not affect the existing health care in Clovis. But it worries me that there will be a young girl out there raped by a family member who was supposed to protect her, pregnant and terrified about what her choices are and her safety after making those choices. This happens here. I've seen it. And I want you to know that this affects me. It affects victims of rape. And I'm not just worried about it, I'm heartbroken. I know that the intent of this ordinance is to block an abortion clinic from coming to Clovis, but there are also other far-reaching repercussions, and I'm asking you to please consider these when voting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Evening, Ms. Williams.
Hello, everybody. My name is Constance Williams. I am speaking for myself as a resident of Clovis. I want to talk to y'all city commissioners, and I know at the end of this meeting, you're going to make a decision that's going to impact people, and there's going to be some people that have a sense of relief momentarily or grief because of a choice that y'all have to make. And I know that it's not an easy choice at all. I think that there's been a suggestion amongst people that that basically people who believe in choice are anti-life. And, I was sitting watching the live stream on the 13th, cooking for my family. I wasn't able to come down, and was really shocked at what I saw. I was, I actually had to pray about it, because I said, man, well, how are all of y'all dealing with the energy that was thrown at you? How are all the people that were, speaking in opposition to the passing of it, how they were feeling being outnumbered, and just ultimately how our community has been destabilized to one degree or another. And you had mentioned that during the meeting, outside forces coming and throwing us into a muck, and it was just really real. The turning over of Roe versus Wade, I didn't think that it would come here so fast. And I saw a lot. I was involved even with some of the protests over the summer, but I just didn't think that the impact of it would come so fast. And I think that when everything is said and done, there's a lot of, statements that were made during the last commission meeting that I wanted to kind of touch upon. I felt that, there was a suggestion that because there were more people that were kind of, vocal about it, that there was some sort of more support in favor of this, ordinance. And, I think that was really smoke and mirrors, it was intentionally, we were thrown into this, hey, we're gonna organize this. We have relatively new city commission. It's been a few years since I first met Commissioner Garza and Commissioner Bryant, who I feel are probably the longest standing members on the commission. And I remember coming to y'all at that time about the voter ID initiative, and basically saying, hey, there's, I believe it's a international city or county manager's citing that says, hey, community development and civic engagement are flip sides of the same coin. Whichever one you start with will lead to the other. And at that time, I know that I spoke to y'all about getting people engaged. And I'm so glad that there are people here engaged. And I feel like, hey, when everything is said and done, what are we doing as a city to promote life? People have talked about the fact that we
Ms.
do not.
Williams.
Yes. Yes.
The 3 minutes have expired, so just
Wrap it up.
Yeah, please.
No worries. I feel that this is a rush to action. It's motivated by religious guilt. I feel like we are feeling, hey, that if we don't do this, it's going against God's wishes. And, that's untrue. We live in a city where people have choice and should have choice. And I'm going to take 30 more seconds. Incest is a real thing. And I went and I found this allegations by Types of County, and there were 10, within the last year, 10 substantiated cases of incest. Incest is not consenting adults. Incest is dealing with children. And whenever we put these type of restrictions in place, like I said, it's not just tying our hands to be able to deal with what's happening in our community. It is, like, we need to set a standard to where we're going to ultimately have the best health care possible, and that we are going to set in place ministries by our community.
Ms. Williams,
to-
I'm
yes,
I'm
and I'll
very sorry.
finish.
Wrap
I'll
up.
finish right now. We should set into
Quiet in the
yeah,
chambers.
we should set into place what we are going to do as communities to help promote education, as Mrs. Hennessy said, to help promote the understanding that, you know, it's not, we shouldn't just jump into sexual relationships, but we have ultimately health reproduction issues that we need to address, and the City Commission should look at the ways that you can help people and not restrict. Thank you.
Thank you. We can hear from a fourth. Hi, how are you? Good evening.
I promise I'll be under time. Shut me off. Okay. Good afternoon. There's a lot of energy in this room today.
If you wish.
Jennifer, I'm a resident. I live here in Clovis.
Thank you.
And I'll put my name and address down for you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Mic check. Okay, so I wanted to bring up a few concerns regarding the proposed ordinance that you are voting on today. Per Section 1 of the ordinance, it states, federal law imposes felony criminal liability on every person, in all caps, who ships or receives abortion pills or abortion-related paraphernalia. I have repeatedly asked for you all to supply documentation outlining the terms above, as many items could be considered abortion paraphernalia, as Ms. Kidd mentioned earlier. What are you considering to be paraphernalia or pills? Who is deciding these terms? Groups from Texas? Outside influences? Secondly, I have asked repeatedly how this will affect incest and sexual assault victims here in Clovis. As you've heard from our other two speakers, it's here, it's happening. It's your neighbors sometimes, you don't know that. Many of those individuals rely on the telehealth options to receive medications to prevent unwanted forced pregnancies from their assaults. The medications supplied by the medical professionals in these instances are legal, safe, and FDA approved, and denying and impeding access to care is a huge human rights violation. A few council members have assured me that per your attorney, I'm still not quite sure which attorney you're referring to, Mr. Jared Morris, or the gentleman from Texas, or maybe even the gentleman from Albuquerque. This will not affect sexual assault victims in Clovis, nor will it affect health care. I have asked repeatedly for supporting documentation that backs up this claim, but all requests have fallen on deaf ears. I wanted to point out the fact that this ordinance is rushed. You said it yourself, it was in about 20-ish days, and the verbiage has been confusing to even some of the commission members here today. What also stands out to me is that most of the commissioners and the mayor have already made up their decisions without taking into account the voices from the entirety of our city, because there are some of us here that are pro-choice, okay? Mayor Morris, when you were elected, you stated the following: I want to bring the community together. Most citizens didn't vote for me. I want to demonstrate to all citizens that I am everyone's mayor. I am asking you to remember that promise today. As I don't feel as if you have personally demonstrated this promise during this process. It feels as if you all only care about one demographic in this community without a thought about the ramifications and the impacts it will have on the other part of this community. I keep hearing you that you all have done your research. Have you? Have you sat down with those who work with sexual assault victims like Ms. Kidd? Have you talked to other legal experts, ones that aren't paid by lobbyist organizations? And have you spoken to hospitals? I'm asking you to do the right thing today, please, even if it's hard.
Thank you, ma'am. So we'll hear from one more member of the public, and then we'll see where we're at, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, my name is Victoria Robledo. I am a district or a constituent of District 2, pregnant, obviously. And I just wanted to talk to y'all today against this ordinance. I'm also a member of Eastern New Mexico Rising, so I guess with that, let me get started. Make sure this is correct. Okay. I wanted to touch on 3 points that have me the most concerned for this ordinance today. That would be the healthcare availability, the legal financial risk to the city, and the time period in which this was brought. First, this city cannot be a city for the unborn when pregnant women like myself can't get the timely care they need. I'm due in less than a month with no appointment scheduled this week. Luckily, we were able to find a compromise, and I got a 2-week follow-up instead of the usual weekly. It should be weekly, but unfortunately that can't happen. You all have continuously said that this will not affect care, but you can't promise that. We have an existing problem that will get worse with this ordinance, and whether or not y'all are willing to admit it isn't relevant. I and many women live it every day. Second, in a meeting with the mayor and city attorney, we learned a lot of things that showed this city is ultimately not ready to deal with the potential repercussions of this ordinance. Chris Bryant told the paper that commissioners understand, quote, "If we approve this ordinance, there is no doubt that we will be looking at a lawsuit over this." Does that sound like it's in the best interest of our city? We've already established this ordinance is not guaranteed to survive in the long or short term, despite claims otherwise. Not to mention this Texas lawyer is not obligated to help or continue helping down the line. And as I like to say, nothing in this world is free. This is a legal gray area experiment that will only serve the church agenda at the cost of Clovis citizens. When bluntly asked about the cost, City Attorney Jared Morris said, and I quote, "If we were to take this to a trial and lose, it would be a huge burden on the city that we don't have the money to pay for. Tax-exempt churches may be pressuring the commission to pass this, but is this really in the best interest of those who will actually pay taxes to the city? Many would disagree regardless of their beliefs. It is anticipated to be so costly that no one was willing to give us, or even the city attorney, an estimate at the time of our meeting. You can't put a price on this. And the ones not footing the bill will always be willing to dive in." Lastly, in less than a month, you drafted, introduced, and are now voting, we are faced with a decision that could impact our city negatively for years to come. The language is purposely vague, the legality is a mess, and the whole thing is completely rushed with no regard for asking the people this would actually affect. It took me longer to grow this child than for y'all to consider stripping away my rights tonight. It is with these points that, while I wish it could be voted down, I urge the commission to consider a compromise and table this ordinance until after the legislative session in January. In a short period of time, this situation mobilized a part of Clovis that many of you may have never known about until recently. Imagine all the good we could bring to the city if we all worked together, bettering it instead of dividing. So please, for the sake of our community, I ask for a motion to table Ordinance 2184. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You know, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, we got the question about what is paraphernalia from several of those that have spoken. I wonder if Mr. Mitchell being on the line, if we could check with you, Mr. Mitchell, and have you speak to that language in the ordinance that refers to paraphernalia.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Go ahead and test that again.
Yes, hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, we hear you. Thank you.
I hear an echo on my end, but I may need to turn the volume down a bit to prevent that. How's that? Can you still hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Great. So the word paraphernalia appears only in the findings section of the ordinance, which is not an operative provision of the draft ordinance. And it refers to the items prohibited in the federal statutes that are referred to later in the ordinance, 18 USC 1461 and 18 USC 1462C. So paraphernalia is the word used as shorthand to encompass everything that is prohibited from being shipped by that federal statute. So all you need to do to find out what's prohibited is to look up 1461 and 1462 and see what they say. And they're quoted verbatim later on in the statute, where it says compliance with federal abortion laws required in 9.90.060.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Mitchell. So, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, you know, as Mr. Mitchell answers that question, in doing so, he points out something that is important and that is key in understanding what this ordinance does and what it doesn't do, and that is it points to federal laws 1461 and 1462 and simply says a provider within the city of Clovis would need to follow these federal laws, which are in fact federal laws on the books. And appreciate the explanation on the verbiage paraphernalia, Mr. Mitchell. Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, you know, while we have Mr. Mitchell chiming in, do you have questions for him? Would you like to hear from more members of the public? Would you like to have discussion? Where are we at?
I think I would like to hear from Mr. Mitchell as far as what he feels would be the effectiveness of this ordinance if it is indeed voted in today.
Okay, I'll let you, and you might want to lean closer to your microphone, Commissioner. But Mr. Mitchell, Commissioner Porter has a question for you.
Sure. Yeah, what the ordinance would do is simply require compliance with federal law and nothing more than that. So it would require a license from the city before an abortion clinic can operate, but the issuance of a license would be contingent on the clinic's commitment to comply with federal statutes that restrict the shipment of abortion pills and other abortion-related paraphernalia. So that's what the effect would have. It just would simply say that if you operate an abortion clinic in the city of Clovis, you need to comply with federal abortion statutes, which include 18 USC 1461 and 18 USC 1462. Nothing more than that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Commissioner Porter, that answers the question for you. Yep. Okay.
Mayor,
Paula?
if I may request, I see Dr. Stephen Haynes in the audience, and I know he's been a longstanding physician here in town, and if I may, I would like to hear from a physician's perspective.
Certainly, providing he's willing. Doctor? Dr. Haynes, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Dr. Stephen Haynes. I've been a resident of Clovis since age 1, except for 14 years of postgraduate education. I was torn when you said you either come for it or against it, because I want to offer something else. And I want you to think hard about it. I am probably more pro-life than almost anybody in this room. I was born a Catholic, raised a Catholic. I am a Catholic 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I am not a grocery store Catholic picking this doctrine of the church to follow and that one not to follow, like some of our elected state officials and national politicians. I have operated on probably every part of the body trying to save lives 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for this. And I am in favor eventually of an ordinance like this. But I want you to pause and take time to try to pave the pathway with as few pitfalls as possible. We've heard about some of the legal costs. I've been told by one of the attorneys that it'd be pro bono on part of Clovis's defense. Having spent 25 years on the board of directors for a professional liability insurance company, I've learned to look in funny places for pitfalls. One of which is, we had a list of approved attorneys that we would provide for the defense. If the physician wanted a different attorney, they paid for it. Is there a provision in the fine print in our contract with the insurance company on something like this? Have we taken time to research this? What would be the cost of plaintiff's attorney's fees if we lose the cost potential for the city, so that you all, 8 of you, are educated, you know what the cost would be. You then, in your hearts and with what you've heard from your constituents, make the best choice when it comes time to vote. But you can say to your constituents, I know all of these facts and this is what I want. Something else I'd like you to consider. Could there be a provision in the ordinance where any physician doing invasive procedures, whether it be in their office or in an outpatient clinic, outpatient surgery center, and I'm talking about endoscopy, outpatient surgeries, orthopedic procedures, also happens to be abortions, you must be a member of the medical staff of the local hospital. We as surgeons were trained, you take care of your own complications. You don't dump them on somebody else by putting them in the back of an ambulance and sending them to the emergency room, such as happens in Albuquerque. There are ways to strengthen this a little bit, but it takes time to look for the pitfalls, remove them, and think about this. This is something that needs legal work. I certainly understand that, but I just urge that you take time, think about with what you've heard here. And I know you must have thought I have spent time with Representative Montoya. I don't even know who he is. He could pass me on the street. But I'm making points from both sides of this saying, pause, get the pitfalls paved over, make this as smooth as possible. I probably hope more than anybody in the room that this eventually will come to fruition. And thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. While we still have the doctor at the podium, do we have questions for him, Commissioner Paula? No? I think.
We have Representative Crowder wanting to say,
Oh,
make a
okay.
statement.
Yeah, we'll get Representative Crowder up here next. Yeah, that'd be great. Our State House of Representatives, Randall Crowder.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and I missed my seat. Thank you for letting me say something. I just want to comment, 2 quick comments that I heard. The gentleman that had his hat on backwards that challenged the letter that Mr. Montoya sent. I served alongside Representative Montoya for 8 years. He is the most pro-life man I've ever met. And I can't think of a single bill that he carried or co-sponsored. I can't think of a single abortion bill that his name was not on the top of the page. He is a very much pro-life, and I've read the letter, and I found it to be factually accurate. There's no distortions in that letter. It's spot on. So
Appreciate
I disagree a little bit with what the gentleman said. Mr. Montoya is the whip of the minority caucus, which means the whole Republican body elected him to be one of our leaders. And that's the caliber of the man that wrote that letter. He is a good man. The second item that was discussed is you were told this item is black or white. You need to vote it. You're for it or you're against it. Dr. Haynes just gave you option 3. There is an option there that's better. As a city commissioner, you probably don't pass a lot of ordinances that somewhere along the trail you're going to amend them. You have to get them better. Someone will see something that you didn't think of and you'll amend it. And it goes through a process. And at the state legislative level, it's the same way. There's a lot of bills that will come year after year after year. They get amended, they get changed, they learn more, they get them better, and they get them right. And that's what the mayor's been saying. We want to get it right. And I hope that you will pause and look deeply at this and get it right. And I think you will. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Representative. Yep. Representative Zamora. Appreciate you being here, sir. We'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of the commission, for the work you do. I've been watching you guys over the years. You do a good job. We have a bunch of good people here in Clovis. Thank you, everybody that's in attendance. Thank you for everybody that's outside. As a representative of the state of New Mexico in District 63, I've learned a lot while we've been in Santa Fe, serving our people. I asked this commission to use and exercise caution in making this decision. It's not black and white. It is if you win or lose, but to make the decision is not black and white. There's a lot of things to be looked at here. We do not only serve God, but we also have to deal with Caesar. And in doing so, we're faced with these issues of the law of the state of New Mexico. Everybody in this room knows that I'm a pro-life person. In being a pro-life person, just like everybody else, you win and lose some battles. We fought hard in Santa Fe to keep this from coming to your door. It didn't happen. Why did it not happen? Because the votes say different. Because the votes elected people that believe that abortion ought to be allowed. And if you would have heard the testimony that I heard in Santa Fe in committees pushing for abortion, it turns your stomach. I couldn't afford this baby, so I aborted it. I was in college, I didn't have time, so I aborted this baby. Those reasons are not medical reasons. That's sad that those things happen when God gives us a choice to make better decisions. But those things happen here. If you use caution to make this decision, and sometimes caution requires different things, whether it's a lot of thinking, research, whether it takes time, but we want to do the things right for our people that elect us. Please make the right decision. If it takes time, there's people standing outside this building that didn't get to come in. I'm sure they don't feel like they got treated right. Maybe you need time to listen to them too. I know it's a tough decision. I sit in a chair that people put me in, and it's not always easy. We stand and we fight for what's right. I pray for you guys. I pray for the people that are standing up for their rights. I ask you to listen to the young lady that came up earlier and asked you to table this decision. Give yourselves more time. There's obviously faults with this ordinance. And the biggest fault the biggest problem you'll serve with the faults is we'll find ourselves in court and the people of this community will flip the bill. There are people all over this city struggling to put food on the table today.
I'll pay for it. I'll pay for the whole bill.
Quiet, quiet.
That is very disrespectful.
You know what? We're going to stop until you excuse yourself, Mr. Dixon. Night. I'm a two-faced mayor, if you didn't hear him.
That was
Representative, we'll give you
Mayor,
the floor.
Mayor, that was very disrespectful. That young man might have moved in yesterday, but he is not a citizen of this, of this city. People like that cause problems. They stand on top of a hill and they yell things out loud and they think that's power and that's the way the system runs. That's not the way it runs, people. And that's why Marcus stood up here a little while ago and talked about your vote is so important. We would not be facing this issue today if the people of the state of New Mexico will wake up and vote different. You take the marijuana issue. Did the majority part of the people here in eastern New Mexico want marijuana here and be distributed to our kids and be distributed in a way, in candy forms and stuff so that our kids could take it to school and eat it? No. But it got pushed on us, outvoted in Santa Fe, and then you can place ordinance to control it where you could have these shops and stuff, but you can't stop the state law from coming in. And that's what you're being faced with today. And I know you're trying to fight it, and you're trying to fight it for the citizens, and the citizens want that, but we have to do it in a manner where it holds, where it's strong. The ordinance has problems. We can't pass an ordinance that has problems. We need to work on it. We need to fix it. I believe we need time to make this better. Thank you for your time. Sorry if I overstepped the time, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Representative. You know, I just want to comment. I mean, I believe Representative Crowder and Representative Zamora each referenced fighting to keep this from coming to us, and specifically what they're referring to is in 2021, Senate Bill 10, which repealed the law that criminalized abortion in our state. And I was following that very closely. I was following that session very closely and watched that happen. And I talked to people about it. And I said, you need to be calling your lawmakers. You need to be talking to people about this, because they did it almost as though, I mean, they literally framed it as, you know, because Roe v. Wade rules, this just needs to be cleaned up and taken off the books, right? And but the problem is that the voters had put people in positions to do so who knew better than that. They saw the writing on the wall. They saw the overturning, the possibility of the overturning of Roe v. Wade coming, and they wanted to put us in this spot. But I watched these two gentlemen and their colleagues fight, really work for us to keep that from happening. But the process overwhelmed them. They didn't have the votes, and you know, I hadn't thought about, or I had thought about not addressing the letter and Representative Rod Montoya's comments in his letter, but these gentlemen spoke to his character, and I'm going to as well. Representative Rod Montoya, for the last decade, has been on the front edge of fighting for life in the state of New Mexico, and he's done a tremendous amount of good work doing that. He's never told me not to do this or told me what to do or hold me hostage. I am completely offended by that notion. And that's a narrative that's been spun up by people that have my cell phone number and could have called and asked me if they thought that was going on. But I did check with Rod Montoya. Why? Because he's on the front edge of this. His name has been on any piece of legislation in the last 10 years that had to do with fighting for life. And so I just want to, I want to thank you gentlemen for the work that you do in the legislature to represent us. And thank you for your comments here this evening. I'm going to circle back to Dr. Haynes brought up a good point, and others have talked about the cost, but Dr. Haynes talked about his perspective as having sat on boards, and he said something about insurance costs. And for everyone's benefit, the commission knows this from their study, but our insurance company has said they will not cover. And so when we talk about the pro bono legal services being offered to us, yes, the legal services are being offered to us, but a judgment that we would get if we've got it wrong, if we get the ordinance wrong and we lose and there's a judgment towards us, that would not be covered by the attorney that's offering pro bono legal services, nor would it be covered by the city's insurance. So for this pro-life mayor, I sometimes have people say, well, it doesn't matter the cost. I would agree if we win, but if we don't win, then we could have clinics come in and set up anyway, but then we also have to pay the legal bills or any judgment that we lose in court. And then another thing that I've tried to do my diligence. I've tried to do my diligence, but we've got some folks locally that have forced us to act impulsively and without thought, is what they've done. And so could we adopt this? Sure, but we've had some points brought up this evening, and so where I've tried to do my diligence, and I've worked really hard since we were forced to take this up in special session to make sure that these commissioners are getting their questions answered. They're getting the information that they need in order to do their research, and that's who you elected. I mean, you elected someone that's going to do their diligence and do their work. And I see the big picture on this and the long game. And so, yeah, we could do this, and maybe we're going to. And I would be happy about that, in that we are doing something to be in the fight on this, because it is important to me that we never become a destination for abortion. But it isn't black and white like some have suggested. It's not as simple as some have suggested. And it's certainly not a matter of us proving our pro-life position, right? So what I just want you to know that these commissioners have poured their hearts into this and have worked so hard. And yes, they're listening to you and they want to give you what you want. We also have been elected to due diligence. So that's part of that. And so I appreciate you, man. I didn't ask them to do that, but I appreciate you, man, talking about that. Dr. Haynes, I appreciate you bringing up so eloquently and so impactfully the caution, the warning to be careful. I've said all along, we want to get this right. We get it wrong, and it's not just a, oops, let's try again. It's, we may have a bad ruling from the New Mexico Supreme Court that ends it. Right, so that's what we've had to wrestle with and think about while listening and trying very hard to give you what you're asking for. And with that, I just appreciated those comments, and I wanted to state that and be very clear that I appreciated. I didn't ask him to do it, but Representative Montoya's letter, because I was slandered. In the letter that a citizen sent to him, and he didn't have to, but he went to my defense to a degree as well. Perhaps I'm off track. Where are we at, and what's the will, commissioners? Would you like to hear from others? Is there questions for Jonathan Mitchell, who again has been gracious to join us this evening and answer legal questions? Where are we at?
I think with the amount of people that we have here, and I'd like to hear from maybe a few more people.
Okay.
Maybe three from each side.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Bryant has suggested we hear from three more on each side of the issue. So I would, yes, ma'am, please.
Hi, I do live here in Clovis. I want to start off by saying I'm here for being a voice for the voiceless. And one of the things that was brought up here was rape. Well, I have a personal viewpoint on that, because My husband was the product of rape. And so his mother was raped when she was young, and she tried to abort him and was unsuccessful. She carried him to term, and she had him, and he was a blue baby. And at that point, she knew that was her yes, that she wanted her child. And she begged the doctors to save his life. And so they did. And I was blessed to know the man, much less to be able to be married with him. He served in the Air Force. And during the Air Force, he was told he couldn't have children. But we are blessed with 4 beautiful children. So with God, anything is possible. And, you know, I just want to start off with a scripture. It's a reading from the book of the prophet Ezekiel. Thus the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, what is the meaning of this proverb that you recite in the land of Israel? Fathers have eaten green grapes, thus their children's teeth are on edge. As I live, saying the Lord God, I swear that there shall no longer be anyone among you who will repeat this proverb in Israel. For all lives are mine. The life of the Father is like the life of the Son. Both are mine. Only the one who sins shall die. If a man is virtuous, if he does what is right and just, if he does not eat on the mountains, nor raise his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, if he does not defile his neighbor's wife, nor have relations with a woman in her menstrual period, if he oppresses no one, gives back the pledge received for a debt, commits no robbery, if he gives food to the hungry and clothe the naked, if he does not lend an interest nor exact usury, if he holds off from evil doings, judges fairly between a man and his opponent, if he lives by statutes and is careful to observe my ordinances, that man is virtuous. He shall surely live, says the Lord God. But if he begets
I'll
a
have you wrap
son
up, ma'am.
who is a thief, a murderer, or who does anything of these things, lends at interest and exacts usury, this son certainly shall not live, because he practices all these abominations. He shall surely die. His death shall be his own fault. Therefore, I will judge you, house of Israel, each one according to his ways, says the Lord of God. Turn to be converted from your crimes, but they may be no cause of guilt for you. Cast away from you all the crimes you have committed, and make yourselves a new heart and a new spirit. Why should you die, O house of Israel? For I have no pleasure in death, or anyone who dies, says the Lord God. Return and live. Bottom line, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Give to God what is God. And life is God's. That is his. He said it in his word right here. And so who are we to judge who has the right to life and who has the right to death? Only God does. He's the one that gives the gift to life. He is the only one that has the right to take it. And my husband, I was with him for 30 years. And there's a lot of men and women that can attest of how beautiful of a spirit he was. So I am grateful, and I even told his mother, I am grateful for her yes, for me to have that gift in my life, my husband, that gave me 4 beautiful children. And so he passed in 2020,
but I am going to fight for the life that he deserved and that each and every one has deserved, because it's not just the life that is taken through abortion, but it is life of generations. I have my children because of him. And when they have children, it's going to be generations that would have been lost through that abortion. So I just ask you to really look into your hearts, into not allowing this to come into our city.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Barnett, before you begin, I just want to remind everyone, out of respect for everyone's time, I do have a 3-minute timer. Please, as you prepare to make your remarks, plan on making them inside of 3 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Barnett.
I'll be brief. So Caleb Barnett, generationally here for several generations. I have an analogy that I would like to propose to you. If I was walking down the street one night, I saw 3 grown men, not so scrawny as myself, who were beating a child, look like potentially to death. All I'm called to do is to step in and to try to protect that child. Those 3 men might also kill me in the process. They might pummel me. I caution you against being overly cautious. I agree with what Eric was saying. There are things where I know we don't like to be black and white, and I understand there's nuances in the world. And so what I will say is, if you guys, the attorney that we have on, Jonathan F. Mitchell, if we could ask him his credentials where he could state that, because they're quite impressive. For him to put his reputation, his time on the line for this, we keep talking about this tonight, like, well, this has been thrown together yesterday. He's not an idiot attorney. He's not a country bumpkin. It's pretty impressive. And so my question to you, because it sounds to me like you guys would like to do this, but you believe that it's just more nuanced and we got to hash out some details. If that is true, I'd like his opinion on if he believes that's true. I'd also like to know, where are you going to go to get further improvement in this bill? I understand that legislative things are very detailed, and I understand that this is relatively quick, but what would really be the processes of, okay, 3 months from now we're going to have a better proposal? Where will we be going for that legal counsel? That's my question.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Barnett, and I think that's a great. And sir, actually, he posed a great question, and so we're going to talk to the attorney for just a moment, okay? Mr. Mitchell, if you're still tracking with us, you probably heard the questions from the last gentleman, but he and I think it's a great idea, and we should have done a better job of introducing you this evening. But if you would be so kind as to talk about your experience, your credentials, and then also, if you would speak about the ordinance and your belief in its effectiveness and so forth. Mr. Mitchell.
Sure. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just briefly talk a little bit about my background. You can also look it up on the internet if needed, but I graduated from law school in 2001 from the University of Chicago Law School with high honors, and I clerked for 2 judges following my graduation from law school, first for Judge Michael Ludig on the 4th Circuit, and then for Justice Antonin Scalia on the Supreme Court. Following that, I worked in the Department of Justice Office of Legal Counsel for about 2.5 years as an attorney advisor. I then served as a visiting assistant professor at the University of Chicago Law School for 2 years. I was an assistant professor at George Mason School of Law for 2 years after that, and then became Solicitor General of Texas in 2010. I served in that post for slightly more than 4 years. I've argued 5 cases before the Supreme Court of the United States, argued about 30 cases in the federal courts of appeals. After leaving the Texas Solicitor General's office, I went to the Hoover Institution and Stanford Law School as a visiting professor of law for 2 years. and I opened my own solo legal practice in 2018, which I've been doing for the last 4.5 years or so. So that's a little bit about my background and resume. I think the gentleman was also just asking my opinion on the ordinance and whatever litigation risk there might be in terms of cost to the city. It was pointed out by someone correctly that if the city is sued over the ordinance, I have offered to defend the city at no charge to the city or its taxpayers. So it would cost the city nothing if we win. But if we were to be sued by an abortion provider and they were to prevail in court, there is some possibility the city could be ordered to pay the plaintiff's attorney's fees. So there could be cost imposed, not because the city would be paying the bills of its own lawyers, but possibly paying the bills of the lawyers who wind up suing the city if those lawyers are successful. So there's some risk, even though I think the ordinance has been drafted in a way to minimize that risk. I don't think I can truthfully say that it's eliminated the risk and driven it down to zero. There still is some potential that the city could be drawn into a lawsuit and could lose, even though I think the ordinance has been drafted in a way that will be hard for the other side to challenge. I just can't say it would be impossible for them to bring a lawsuit. Happy to go into more details if anyone has follow-up questions about that.
Great, thanks, and appreciate the explanation. And obviously, you have an incredible amount of experience and a decorated career. So, you know, we appreciate again the time that you've spent working on this for us and your time here this evening. Mr. Barnett's question, you know, was a good one. You know, how you know. And I'm probably asking you to speculate, and maybe you wouldn't want to do that. But he kind of said, well, you know, if not, you know, this one, then how could it be improved upon and so forth, which leads me to a question that I have for you, Mr. Mitchell, and that is, you know, when for example, we have the set of circumstances that we do within our state that there's a high likelihood that there will be legislation in the next legislative session, so, you know, just in a few months, that will affect this. So when we think about, you know, strategy in terms of, you know, trying to put an ordinance in place, do it right, so to speak, when we think about the timing of doing that now versus when we might start to understand what that legislation would look like just after the first of the year. I mean, do you have thoughts on that as far as, you know, the timing, I guess, of this effort?
Yeah, so we don't know yet what's going to happen in the legislative session that will be starting in January. I don't know whether the Democratic leadership in the state legislature will want to enact legislation that could codify a state right to abortion. And that's one of the challenges with trying to enact an ordinance like this in a state like New Mexico, which is Democratic controlled. There is always the possibility that the legislature could enact something that could make our task more difficult. So there could be some benefit, I think, in waiting to see what the legislature does, if anything, in this upcoming session, and then perhaps adjusting the ordinance accordingly in response to what the legislature decides to enact. You know, there are two real challenges we face in New Mexico that we don't really face in a state like Texas. There's a state legislature that is hostile to the efforts to enact ordinances of this sort. And I think there's a state Supreme Court that is probably going to be hostile as well if these things were challenged. So we do want to make sure this is as bulletproof as possible before we get it enacted. I think what's been drafted is the best we can do at this time, given the current state of New Mexico law and given what we currently know. But that could be subject to change if the governor, if she's reelected, and the state legislature decides to enact new legislation in January or February.
Thank you for that, Mr. Mitchell. And Mr. Mitchell and Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, you know, last summer when I began researching what, you know, in an attempt to be proactive and calculated and measured and in my research, I started to present ideas to the city attorney and others, and brainstorming, you know, what is it that a home rule municipality may be able to do under current law, if anything, to regulate and or ban. And I looked, it seemed to me that Dr. Haynes, earlier, you talked about what I would, as a layman refer to as, business registration requirements or something of that sort, where, we would require that a abortion provider be a medical doctor licensed in the state of New Mexico, for example, and that they would have to have admitting privileges at the hospital and all of those things. And you might be some of you might be thinking, well, why think about doing those things? Well, in the spirit of public health and safety, if the state law is actually going to rule in our community, then let's create an environment where women and the unborn are as safe as possible. And so, Mr. Mitchell, your thoughts on, after analyzing the legal landscape within New Mexico, obviously you landed on this, and this is what you've presented to us. So, the answer is that with the landscape the way it is, this is the best of options. But what about that idea? If we saw legislation starting to shape up within the state, wouldn't we consider those types of requirements?
We certainly would want to adjust the ordinance if the legislature takes action in January or February of the legislative session, which I understand is a big if. We don't know yet what the governor's agenda will be or what the state legislative.
Frankly, we don't know who the governor will be.
We don't know who the governor.
Yeah, just right. Officially, yeah.
So the other point I think I could make about this, Mr. Mayor, is the simple fact that you are considering the ordinance and the fact that the ordinance will remain under consideration still will do, I think, a great deal to deter any abortion provider from wanting to open up shop in Clovis. I think if they're looking at the possible cities in New Mexico that are on the Texas-New Mexico border, they would probably want to open in a city that isn't actively considering an ordinance like this one, because it will be easier for them if they don't have to put up a legal fight in order to open, in order to get a license. So even if you don't pass the ordinance today, the fact that it remains under consideration, even if it's being tabled or postponed to a later date, can still create a great deal of deterrent effect to providers that might be considering whether to open in Clovis, and might induce them to consider other places in New Mexico rather than Clovis or any other city on the border.
Appreciate that. Excellent point, Mr. Mitchell. That's a great point that we need to take into account. Any questions while I have Mr. Mitchell talking to us?
I do. Mr. Mitchell, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, so I have a question. What if the state remains the same with their current governor and they put more restrictions on this, find ways of putting more restrictions on this ordinance? I think that's
We have to wait and see exactly what those restrictions are and whether there's a way to use federal law to trump whatever the New Mexico legislature enacts. So the way this ordinance is crafted is to rely on existing federal statutes, which should trump state law. But again, it's very hard to answer your question, Commissioner, if I don't know what that state legislative enactment is going to look like.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Garza. Any other questions at this point for Mr. Mitchell? Okay. Mr. Mitchell, we do certainly appreciate your time. If you have the ability to hang on, please do so. And we'll go back to the public. Sir? And again, we're going to go 3 minutes.
Tommy Hosted, 2308 Bob White Court, pastor of Prince Street Baptist Church.
Thanks, Mr.
And I'm
Holstead.
coming again, and I know I've talked to you several times about the cost of not following what the scriptures tell us to follow. And in that, I know that one of our most critical things here in this area is water. If you will study the book of Amos, in whom has given us an order, God said, for 3 sins of, and for 4, I will not revoke punishment. When you get over into the third or fourth chapter of it, he says, I gave you lack of bread, I gave you lack of water, I withheld the rain from you, and your wells dried up, you're having to go to another city to get it and to bring it in. You can check it out yourself, it's in there. It's in there. Mm-hmm. Is there any wonder why we're in the state we're in? God is putting out a plea for us to return and to return to Him, that He would be able to bless us. He tells us that if we will seek Him, He will do that. The second thing I want to bring up, I had three altogether, is the Constitution of the United States of America. Have you read it? I don't see anywhere in there where it gives the right to death until after a fair trial. There is not one of these children that's had a fair trial. Every one of them has been put to death without so much as a say of their own. How is it that that takes place? And I wonder, how is it that we have come to the place that our flesh, Adam said, this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bone. How do we come to the place to want to destroy our own flesh? I don't understand that. How do we come to the place to say that I'm willing to give my firstborn? I don't understand that. I just don't. The Constitution don't stand for it. The Bible don't stand for it. And I can tell you, 55 years ago, there was a young lady that was forced by an authority in her life to have an abortion. She is nearly 70 years old right now, and this still haunts her today. Still haunts her. While they say it's a choice, it's not always a choice. When it's on the board, they can have authorities force it upon them. I can tell you for sure, if you want to protect Clovis, you better strike it down, because if you don't, we're fighting a bigger fight, a more costly fight than what's going to come from the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holstead. If I've kept track correctly, we've heard from three more that were in favor, and so we would have just...
I'm not going to speak. I'm just going to ask a question. Can we, after you pass this, amend it so that we can have time to pull everybody together? Because I think we got a lot of interest the same on both sides. Carol and Spence, and I've got an office business on Prince Street.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna hear from three individuals. We have had three that were in favor. Okay, so now no more than three individuals that would like to speak on the other side of the issue, please, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Krista Jones, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a daughter of the Air Force and moved to the area back in 2005 as a high school senior. My dad was, of course, stationed here at Cannon. We arrived just after the BRAC Commission, that's the Base Realignment and Closure Commission, for those who are uninitiated in the military's lingo, had Cannon slated for closure. I'm sure many of you remember. Obviously, Operation Keep Cannon ensued, and amazingly, the grassroots movement was able to secure another mission for Cannon and kept it open. I obviously remained here when my dad left in 2007 to put roots down, as well as to continue my bachelor's degree at Eastern. Now, the Department of Defense, I'm going to call it the DoD from here on out, released a memo just after the overturning of Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization in late June that reaffirmed existing federal law that allows the DoD to perform and or pay for abortions when pregnancy threatens the life of the mother or is the result of rape or incest. This applies to service members, dependents, and DoD civilian employees. Further, the government will cover the travel of active duty members to receive abortion care if necessary, and civilian employees are allowed to use sick leave to travel if needed for any type of medical treatment. The DoD has made it clear where it stands on the issue of abortion. And while they will cover a 400+ mile round trip to Albuquerque Clinic if necessary, the effects on the mission readiness will be questioned. If this ordinance is passed and found to be to the mission's detriment, no amount of Operation Keep Cannon stickers and posters will save it. I ask you to consider this when you place your vote this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi.
My name's Naomi Gottlieb Miller. I live on Cannon Air Force Base. Being a woman.
Oh, ma'am,
Yes.
Close to the mic. Someone can't hear you back here.
Like this?
Yeah. Yes, right up close.
As close as I can. Being a woman of reproductive age is difficult in this town. When women's medical closed earlier this year, it suddenly became even harder for a woman to deliver her child safely within city limits, as well as receive sufficient and consistent prenatal care, as has been brought up already tonight.
Lubbock is considered a local, but if I'd had to deliver 2 of my 3 children at a hospital 2 hours away, I would have delivered on the side of the road, which is not as fun as it sounds. Last year, when a friend discovered she had a high-risk pregnancy, she had to relocate for 6 months to Colorado Springs while her husband, a pilot in my husband's squadron, stayed here taking as much leave as he could to care for their kids. They ended up having to PCS because there was no sufficient postpartum care for her and her child. You might wonder why I'm talking about problematic deficiency of prenatal and postnatal care in Clovis when the issue we're here for is abortion, but it's because they are all part of the broad picture of reproductive care. Young couples, couples who both want to have children and don't want to have children, do not want to move to this town because the reproductive care is abysmal. And whether you approve of it or not, abortion is part of reproductive care. Even when you try to include exceptions like when mother's life is in danger, what does that even mean? Like, how almost dead does the pregnant woman have to be in order to wait to save her life? This language leaves too much open for interpretation, too much uncertainty for medical professionals to risk legal action if they act too soon. Is this what we want for the women of Clovis, for our wives, neighbors, friends, mothers, and daughters? We want them to have to suffer to the point of organ failure or sepsis, because that's what the ordinance currently indicates and leaves open to interpretation. If this ordinance goes through, if you rule to make Clovis a sanctuary city, make no mistake, women will die. Young couples won't want to come here if the medical options they have for choosing when to get pregnant, if they want to get pregnant, and how to have a safe pregnancy or a safe delivery is limited. Or in the unfortunate event that the pregnancy is unviable, the option to have a safe D&C is prohibited. Instead of welcoming young couples to the community to raise their families, to stay for the long term, you'll turn them away. And that will be another nail in the coffin for this town, because young couples are the lifeblood of small towns, and without them, the town will slowly die. I want to add one final thing, which is not in my notes. There is a separation of church and state. There is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. He was next. He's been standing there waiting.
He's toward the other side.
I'm here to speak.
Pro-life, not pro-choice.
No, he's not.
Mayor,
Mr. Muse.
Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I'm here to speak against the ordinance being passed tonight. And that's one thing I have to say, and that's the other. I want to apologize to you for the way you've been treated throughout this. I resent the bullying and the pushing that has caused you to have to make this decision. And I trust that you'll all make a good decision based on your convictions. I think having some time to flesh this out, keep it on the burner, keep it ready when the time is right, pass it. I don't see anybody on this commission that I think will vote against it. I may be wrong, but I don't think there is. The thing we need to do is to get rid of this governor. I believe this governor hates kids. She wants to abort them anywhere, anytime, any fashion, and then sell their body parts. That's what goes on in New Mexico. She also has let the CYFD just be in shambles. She's had 4 years to fix it. She doesn't. She didn't take care of the kids there. And then, according to the Legislative Finance Committee, she's asking for $36.7 million for CRT training. She's going to force that down our throats. So hopefully, by Tuesday night, we'll be rid of her. And also, this action, if you pass it tonight, could affect the election. We stand a possible chance of flipping the House. The House seats are going to improve. We're going to gain quite a few House seats. And so I would encourage you to table this, keep it on the burner, keep fleshing it out, have it ready in an instant's notice that you could do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. And Ms. McFarlane, we'll hear from you next. Thanks.
Thank you.
And just for everyone that's keeping track, I think Mr. Muse's was kind of straddled the line. So we're gonna let Ms. McFarlane have something to say as well.
Okay, hi, my name is Susan McFarlane. I wrote a 6-minute speech and I got it down to 3 maybe. But I wanted to point out that I used "We the People," which has the great documents of the American nation, including the Constitution. I used the Library of Congress to quote Thomas Jefferson and find what he meant by a wall of separation between church and state. And what he intended to say was that he didn't want a wall of separation between church and state. This was a letter to the Connecticut Baptist Committee that wanted, Danbury was the name of them, and they wanted to have become the national religion. And his thing was there needs to be a wall, and that they found out that he, the clause, his meaning was way deeper than that, and he, in this letter, it explains the depth that he intended, and right now I can't find it. So I'm going to pull up what I've got here. Okay. Our founders did not flee a religious monarchy just to build an evangelical theology. Thomas Jefferson wrote in a letter to the Danbury Baptist about a wall of separation between church and states. He was explaining the meaning of the words in the Constitution. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, thus building a wall between church and state. Jefferson's statement has been quoted by many Supreme Court justices. And I'm going to skip down to my last thought because I don't want to get dinged. An article citing Cardinal Bernardin, who of course would be Catholic if he's a cardinal. He says, "Those who defend the right of life of the weakest among us must be equally visible in support of the quality of life of the powerless among us, the old, the young, the hungry, and the homeless, the undocumented immigrants, the unemployed workers, and the disabled. Such a quality of life posture translates into specific political and economic positions on tax policy, employment generation, welfare policy, nutrition and feeding programs, and health care. Consistency means we do not have it both ways. We cannot urge a compassionate society and vigorous public policy to protect the rights of the unborn and then argue that compassion and a significant public programs on behalf of the needy undermine the moral fiber of the society or are beyond the proper scope of governmental responsibility. And in my own words, this means to me, this speaks to me, if abortion is illegal, then you better fork over the money to pay for those babies born. You better sign up to adopt one, every one of you. I'd like to see hands of how many people have adopted children in here. There's not many, and but there are.
Hey, let's.
Great. That's good to see because there's still a lot of kids in those homes, and I know my time is up.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm going to
please wrap
say
up.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I just think that we need to put our money, our taxes, into the poor and the needy if we're not going to allow abortion.
Thank you.
Abortion's cheaper.
Okay, let's let's have order, please. I want to. I just feel like saying it. I've never. I've been told, and I think it's inferred by some of the comments that, that I've woven religion into this. I haven't. I've stated my pro-life position. I've never made it about my faith. But I think people that know me, and I think even publicly, I'm known to have a faith. But my desire is to keep abortion out of our city for health and safety reasons, and I don't want us to be a destination for abortion. And Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, we have before us this ordinance that you could adopt this evening if you think it's ready to go, if you think that it is the best move, taking everything into account, the whole picture, which is difficult to do, and no one is considering more factors as they think about that than you are, so I know it's a difficult decision. What is the will?
I vote we have some discussion amongst ourselves.
Okay. You want to have some discussion? Okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
and I'd be happy to start. I feel like I've been silent for 28 days, and I would love to speak.
Well, there was
if
a
I may.
meeting that you weren't allowed to be at.
Right, no, I
Yeah.
understand.
So,
I understand.
yeah.
So, if I may, I want to be very clear to everyone here so that I'm not misunderstood or misquoted. I am pro-life from the moment it begins to natural death. And I very much take offense tonight that I have been told that my private life does not match my public life. I am the same person here today, sitting here in front of you, as I am going to be in my pajamas later tonight. I have the same thoughts, and you'll hear the same thoughts from me consistently. I was elected by the citizens of Clovis to have fortitude, patience, strength, and to seek wisdom and counsel. I also know that I must be truthful and transparent with all of you. 28 days ago, there was a group of individuals that came to our town to very aggressively urge the City Commission to call an emergency session to introduce an ordinance. I understand their passion, but I don't understand their methods. It gave me room to pause when these individuals pressed for an emergency meeting before the commission was even given a chance to read the ordinance they brought with them. Then an emergency meeting was called, knowing 2 of the commissioners could not be in attendance. Again, it made me pause and question why. Since then, there have been half-truths and dishonest stories regarding the viability of this ordinance and the long-term consequences of this ordinance spread throughout my community. At this time, I want to get the fear and emotion off the table and give you just a portion of what I've been able to learn throughout these last 28 days. I and a few of the other commissioners at times have sought out 7 attorneys on the local, state, and national level. All 7 of these attorneys are highly regarded in their field and expertise. 4 of them I know for a fact are pro-life attorneys. Not necessarily defending pro-life, but personally they are pro-life, because I wanted to seek out different answers, knowing that there would be a bias in each and every person in one way or another. All 7 of these attorneys, in similar fashions, told me the same thing. You need to look at the long-term consequences. You need to use caution when making this decision. There may be a better way. Let's stop and think about this. I'm not sure this has been thought through all the way, are just a few of the comments that I received. I don't have the answer tonight. I don't have the magic bullet that some people have referred to. But I do know this. There are 9 of us sitting up here. Not a single one of us is an attorney or has any background in law. This ordinance will put us in a legal posture that we do not currently understand. I know as of tonight, not every one of us up here has even heard the voice of the attorney who drafted this ordinance or will defend it. We must listen to the experts. Like Ms. Hennessy said tonight, I thought it was wonderful. We must be proactive about thinking about life. We must do our due diligence. We cannot make decisions based on fear or emotion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate that. Anyone else?
Mayor?
Yep. Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. So just so everybody knows, we've been accused of not listening to both sides. I read every single email that is given, that's been sent to me. I read it entirely, all the way through, and it's a lot. We've gotten a lot of emails and a lot of information. So we do look at all those things because we do want to make sure that we capture every side and aspect of this because it is such a large decision. Just today, we were given the letter from Mr. Montoya, Representative Montoya, and we had a change and an edit to the ordinance before us today. Just today. Now, certainly, you can't expect us to put an ordinance in there, out there that is going to put us in jeopardy when we can potentially ensure that we investigate, get sound advice from other attorneys, constitutional attorneys, to make sure we get this right. Because the worst thing we can do is put an ordinance out there that's not right. And you ask if we could change an ordinance, we certainly can, but by the time that comes around, we're getting sued from this ordinance we currently have in front of us. This is unrealistic when we have all of these changes coming so rapidly, and we have so many attorneys that are saying it might be better to wait. Not kill this thing, but to table this so that we can get an ordinance out there that is as solid as we can make it. And I can tell you, I've been working tirelessly on this. I've put in numerous edits, recommendations to this ordinance to make sure that if it were passed tonight, that it would be as sound as we could possibly get it to this point. But I'm not sure we're there based on just the information we got today. And then some of the comments that were made to us that we might need to look at incorporating. And if we put this out there and state legislation takes a look at it, they could build whatever they want to build to combat this. And it's alive for 4 months, and it doesn't do what we want it to do as a city. Okay? We are listening to everybody. And I can tell you I'm pro-life as well. But we have to get this right. Because if we don't, the ramifications could be much worse than you can ever imagine. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate your comments. And, appreciate your comments and your work on this. Anyone else? Thoughts? Commissioner David Bryant, do you have anything to add?
Yes, maybe. I wonder, this particular ordinance, or whatever other ordinance we would come up with later, would we still get sued? Even if we did put this off and put other wording in it and had counsel. I mean, would we still get sued? Even if we had it? I think we would. And that's just my thoughts. I don't know that we might be able to put more wording into this, make it better. But I still think there's people out there that are going to try to sue us, regardless of what happens or whatever changes we make. That's just my thoughts.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate your thoughts on that. Commissioner Porter?
I'd like to comment to that, Commissioner Bryant. I think you're right. I think that the possibility, even if we strengthen the ordinance, which is my hope that we do, that there is the potential for us to still be sued. My hope is I don't look to strengthen the ordinance to prevent a lawsuit. I look to the ordinance to strengthen it, to ensure that we win in the long term. That is my heart, because at the end of the day, I think many of our goals are the same. I do not want for Clovis to be a destination for the unborn. And I feel like a hasty decision without going through a thorough vetting process for such a important issue is foolish. And we've even heard from the attorney for the pro-life group that has come to town, that he says that it would be wise to wait. This is coming from the group that came in and started this. And it's the council that group has chosen. And when that aligns with all of the other attorneys that we have spoken to, it just makes me feel like the right thing to do is to wait, to vet this. Let's figure out how we can best win at this. And that's my position.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Porter. Mr. Mitchell made the point, and it was a good one, and it's a thought that I had is just simply the fact that we're working on this and we're discussing this. It could be accomplishing what I would consider to be my goal, and that is keeping clinics from choosing Clovis, right? And so, look, this is a worthy discussion, but I think we would all agree that we've been rushed. I've used the phrase with some of the people that are pushing the hardest lately and it's this, that I have been made to be by people who say they're well-intended and would otherwise want things done right, I've been made to be impulsive and thoughtless by rushing through this, and that's just no way to operate. So I agree with what you've had to say. Thoughts? This side?
Mayor, I do
Yep.
have a comment.
Yep.
I think most of you know how I feel. I'm the one that made the motion to introduce this ordinance at the last meeting, but I also want to make sure we do this right. I don't want to come back here in a few months and think, well, we should have added this, we should have done this in this ordinance. There's always a possibility of litigation through this, but let's be sure that it's correct and we take every opportunity to make sure that doesn't happen. I think it's all our purpose at this point to make sure that we do not allow an abortion clinic to come into our city. I think we're all agreeable to that. But let's make sure the ordinance is correct and we take every opportunity we can to make sure that we don't end up being sued over this.
I appreciate those comments, Mayor Pro Tem. And you know, we've all alluded to the fact that we presume that there will be a bill in the legislature in the next session. You know, I view it as my responsibility to not only work on this with you all, but also advocate for us in Santa Fe, and that's something that I've been very active in doing in the time that I've been in office. And you know, it is my commitment to my community that I will be. If there is legislation introduced, and I will talk to lawmakers and ask that there, that there's legislation introduced in our favor. But you know, I would like whatever is shaped by the state to recognize the values of Eastern New Mexico, the pro-life values of Eastern New Mexico, and you know, so I guess what I'm saying is that, you know, as we work on this, you know, what I know is that the state is ultimately going to decide on this, and that is decided by us, really, because we are the state. So it's who we put in the governor's office, it's who we put in legislative seats, and then it's the influence that we have and that we exercise to go and communicate our values, our wishes, and make, you know, a would-be new law around this reflect our values. And so, you know, that's something else that I want to be able to work on. And so we got to ask ourselves, you know, does approving this, does adopting this accomplish, you know, only a short-term goal, or does it also accomplish long-term goals? What, you know, these are the thoughts that you have to consider. But you know, I would love to hear from anyone else that has a thought on this, or
Mayor?
you know, yep.
I make a motion that we table this ordinance.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to table from Commissioner Lauren Rowley and a second from Commissioner George Jones. Yes, Mrs. Blaschke, please come forward to do it, though. And we do have a motion and a second on the floor, but
May,
On a tabling discussion, on a tabling motion, there can be no discussion.
okay. Can I hear from the public?
Mayor, we certainly can. We haven't formally adopted any Robert's Rules of Order, so we typically allow it, and we allow debate all the way up until vote, so it's something we normally
I appreciate that, Mr. Morris. And Representative Zamora, thank you. And I always appreciate your advice and so forth. But I do know the city attorney's right on that.
Just
yes,
a
ma'am.
real quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
If you table or postpone it, is there something you can do to make sure that there isn't an abortion provider that comes in between the times that you guys make that decision? That's my question.
Okay.
Like, can you deny a business license in the meantime or delay it or something? That-
No, and part of the consideration and the effectiveness of this ordinance is, you know, if it were adopted, you know, could we actually enforce it the way it is to prevent that as well? So that's part of the debate here. Yeah. Thank you. We have a motion and a second to table. Any further debate or discussion from the commission? I'll call the vote. Commission, please vote. By a vote of 7 in favor and 1 opposed, the motion to table carries. Thank you. So our business isn't concluded. We'll give the folks that want to leave right now a moment, and then we'll continue.
I just want to tell you that I appreciate the due diligence, and I heard your words. Yikes. I know that this is not an easy decision, and that we're very passionate about this. But you're absolutely right, because I am pro-life. There's a lot of pastors here, there's a lot of ministers here, there's a lot of teachers here, that we are affected by the decision that you're going to make. And you're absolutely right. It has to be the right decision. Am I happy that it didn't go the way that I would have liked it to gone? No. But I voted for you to do your job. So I'm going to trust you to do your job. And I think the majority of us are going to do that. If we're honest with ourselves and we leave here, we will pray for you, for your wisdom. And we know that whatever happens, you did for the best of our community. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you for that. Would you state your name, please?
Sure. Benetta Hudson, pastor of Living Word Church of God.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for your words. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna get back on track here. We have the one item that we're looking at under new business. It is request for approval of shooting range pricing for youth and youth organizations. This is at the new shooting range, and of course it was in the consent because it wasn't anticipated that we would need much discussion or debate on this. Is there a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve from Commissioner George Jones, second from Commissioner Helen Casaus. Commissioners, please vote. And the vote is unanimous. The motion is carried. Thank you. We will move on to reports, unless, if it's all right with you, we can push the reports. This has been a long, exhausting meeting and day. So we will discuss any future agenda items, perhaps. Ms. Burrows?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. On the next meeting, we'll have the legislative priorities for 2023 and the salary and compensation plan, the economic development plan, the salary and compensation plan, yes, for next year. Economic development plan. I think that Commissioner Casaus has asked for a Red Cross kettle kickoff proclamation. And then I believe are we having chicken?
Yes, I would like to bring that back.
What are you bringing back?
The chickens.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought, okay. That kind of chicken, okay.
And then
I thought maybe Foxy's was catering or something. But,
we could arrange that. Mayor.
and then we have
maybe not on the same night. Okay.
And then we have
Okay, let's have order. I'm sorry. I was cutting up, but let's have order. Ms. Burrows, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And then we have Martin Luther King.
Oh, okay, thank you. Very much looking forward to the salary and compensation item that Mr. Howalt is bringing to us next meeting, and as well as those other items. Thank you. Future meetings, or meetings coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have Lodgers Tax Board meeting at 5:30 on Tuesday, November 8th.
You did amazing.
We also have Planning and Zoning Commission meeting at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, November 9th. Senior Services will meet at 1:30 p.m. on Thursday, November 10th. City Hall will be closed on Friday, November 11th for Veterans Day. Looks like we have Parks and Recreation and Beautification Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Monday, November 14th. And the next City Commission meeting will be at 5:15 on Thursday, November 17th, right here in this room. With that, we are adjourned.
Bringing up.